Good morning. Good morning. I am Dr. Sheila Boozer, the proud superintendent of Champaign Unit 4 School District. Thank you all for being here today. Centennial High School is proud to be the home of the incredible Chargers, where approximately 1,400 students receive exceptional educational experiences every single day. And I would be remiss if I didn't say this. If it ain't blue, it ain't true. All right. At the start of the 24-25 school year, we introduced a policy limiting the use of cell phones and personal electronic devices. This initiative provides an opportunity for deeper focus on learning and engagement, ensuring that our school system remains a distraction-free environment. After careful consideration, the Unit 4 Board of Education and our administrators determined that limiting the use of these devices will give our students the best chance for social, emotional, and academic success. We are all aware of the challenges posed by the inappropriate use of social media in schools all across our country. Our primary goal is to support the social, emotional, and mental well-being of every Unit 4 student. In fact, several states have even passed laws banning the use of cell phones in schools. And I know Governor Pritzker will share more about this shortly. We want our students' phones turned off so their minds can be fully engaged in learning. You'll see posters with this message in our classrooms and throughout the middle and high school buildings as a reminder. So, how is this policy working? We recently surveyed our families, teachers, and our students. Both our teachers and families report that the new guidelines are having a positive impact. Well, far as our students, they've been cooperative in following the guidelines, though it's certainly an adjustment for all of them. We believe this approach will help Unit 4 students enhance their concentration, reduce anxiety, and ultimately improve their overall school experience. Since every student is provided with a Chromebook for schoolwork, a cell phone is not really necessary for their learning. So at this time, we just want to remind everyone that we didn't take the cell phones away. We just said put them away during the class time because we're trying to teach our students to navigate the real world. So at this time, it is my distinct honor to introduce our esteemed Governor J.B. Pritzker, who will further discuss his proposal regarding the ban on cell phones in our school classrooms. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Boozer, and I want to say hello to all the Chargers that are here today, and to everyone listening. It's great to be here in Champaign again. I am very glad to be here with some of the brightest young minds in the entire state of Illinois. I want to thank not only Superintendent Boozer for the very kind introduction, but also for her leadership of the Champaign Unit 4 School District. I want to also thank Mayor Deb Finan, who's been such a great partner over the years, getting things done for the state by just being a great manager and leader for Champaign, especially for our children. And I also want to thank someone I get to introduce in a few minutes, Mark Sikora, who's going to share his story as an educator who has managed with a cell phone limiting policy here in the Champaign Unit 4 School District, and who has been helping us shape Chargers and students for generations now. You can see it right here in Champaign. Quality public schools are foundational to a strong community and a healthy economy. Over the past 6 years, my partners in the General Assembly and I have focused on supporting K-12 education, and we're making tremendous progress in that mission. We've increased funding for Illinois schools every single year since I took office, increased the number of teachers in Illinois, and we've now ranked in U.S. News and World Report rankings of states, 7th in the nation for pre-K to 12 education. I think people sometimes underrate and understate how well our schools really are operating in Illinois, and this is, again, a prime example of excellence that we get to show the world. In 2024, our 3rd through 8th graders charted the highest ever proficiency rate in English language arts. 8th grade reading scores were the 2nd highest in the nation. 8th grade math scores, 5th highest in the nation. Illinois' high school graduation rates are the highest they've been in 14 years. It's a testament to what our kids will achieve when we invest in them properly, and a demonstration of how hard our teachers work to maximize student success and enrichment. It's imperative that our state set our young people up to achieve their full potential, not just by investing in them, but by fostering a healthy and productive classroom environment. In conversations with educators from around the state, there is one thing most commonly cited as an impediment to classroom learning: cell phones. A Pew Research study found that 72% of high school teachers identified cell phone distraction as a major problem in their classroom. Other independent evaluations have shown phones increase harm to social and mental health, foster academic dishonesty, and create distractions during instruction, all leading to poor academic performance and declines in well-being. Further, with cyberbullying increasing at alarming rates, parents want us to take action to protect their kids. That's why I'm moving forward with a piece of legislation that I've had proposed in the General Assembly requiring that all school districts in Illinois adopt a cell phone policy that bans the use of phones during classroom instruction. That will allow our teachers to focus on really what matters most, delivering a quality education that opens up opportunities for kids across our state. Study after study has demonstrated the benefits of a ban in classrooms, classroom use of cell phones, not just on student performance, but on overall health and well-being. Bullying goes down while grade point averages and advanced placement test scores go up. Attendance at after-school events even increases. Champaign Unit School District 4 has helped to lead the charge in this work, implementing its own cell phone policy this year. Teachers, administrators, and students have told me that there's a stark improvement in the overall learning environment. I know that a lot of students don't love the idea of putting their cell phones away during class time, but better learning is better for all the kids in the classroom and really for the entire school and the entire community. It's something that I want for everyone in the state of Illinois. Let me be clear, though, this policy should not be taken in isolation. It has to be paired with comprehensive, sustained investments in the entire school system. I believe we owe it to our kids to cultivate the healthiest, most productive learning environment possible. This proposal and our education agenda will do that. Illinois students today are the leaders of our state and our country tomorrow. It's our future generation of doctors and scientists and hardworking tradespeople, mechanics and small business owners and entrepreneurs. As we feel increasing threats to our educational system from the federal government these days, please know that in Illinois we will never waver in our commitment to educating, uplifting, and empowering our youth. Because we're here at a public high school today, I feel compelled to address the news of President Trump's plan to dismantle the Department of Education. Whatever buzzwords or jargon they're using to describe it will not change the simple fact. They are making deep and harsh cuts to public education that will have an immediate impact on students here in Illinois and across the nation. Students in rural communities who rely on federal funding to keep their schools open, students with disabilities and special needs who receive additional support in their classrooms, low-income students who depend on Pell Grants to earn their college degrees, all will be affected. This should reveal just how profoundly out of touch this federal administration is with the needs of working families. Tariffs are increasing grocery prices, the cost of housing and energy. Tariffs. Everybody should know a tariff is a tax on American people. It's not something that foreigners are paying. It's something that Americans pay. And it's what they're using, frankly, to raise money to give away a whole lot of tax cuts to the wealthiest people in this country. Their focus now is on cutting funding for your children's school and for everyone in this room. This isn't about efficiency, and it isn't about creating jobs. Trump wants to give a $4.5 trillion tax cut to his billionaire friends. In Illinois, we gave a tax cut to ordinary working families with the child tax credit, and we eliminated the grocery tax, and we increased funding for our public schools while we did that. Elon Musk doesn't need a tax break when it comes at the expense of your children's future. So thanks again to the students and the faculty here at Champaign Centennial for hosting us and for being proactive about student health and success. I look forward to taking the questions from members of the press, but I first want to turn it over to a social studies teacher here who I just got to know and is, I think, beloved and has served so many students over the years. A graduate of Centennial, importantly, Mark Sikora. Mark.
I have no idea what I'm doing here. Just kidding. So I was looking at a few notes that we, it was a very unscientific study amongst other staff members, and as I look at my list now, the guy before me just pretty much said all of them and more. So I want to thank the governor, the mayor, and the district for allowing me to at least represent, and I do this very proudly of all the staff members who have come before me and those who are here now. Just so you know, yes, I graduated from this building. I've been working here for 29 and a half years as a teacher. So just like what the governor said, I'm old. We were talking about, what were some of the major problems that we're seeing on the ground floor, if you will. And I really appreciate that the governor is putting himself and his team down at the school level and talking to teachers and talking to students and making sure that this is right for everybody. Yeah, I think he's right. Student engagement definitely increases when they're not being pulled into the cyberspace that their phone has provided for them. So we've seen the same thing in the classrooms. The second part, we do run into how quickly information or misinformation has been spread amongst student body when they're on their cell phones. And that, in a lot of ways, unfortunately, escalates problems and issues that do not need to be escalated. So we oftentimes as teachers and staff have to deal with that collateral damage when the students are just kind of running wild with their messaging services and everything else that they're on. And then finally, for those of us who have been in this business long enough and you have teens, you know that these years are very much full of anxiety as it is. The issue with bullying is definitely, it's been there for a long time, but whatever reason, it feels like that phone usage in school is just multiplying that effect. So in a lot of ways, I think what the governor is trying to do, as well as what I would even say the First Lady has put in the State of the Union address just the other day, I think we're all somewhere in the same page, right? We want to figure out, we can't solve all the problems, but this is one thing that perhaps we could make steps towards. So like I said, I sincerely hope that the governor and the rest and everyone has this conversation. Talk to your teens, teens talk to each other. As the governor said, it's going to be a little bit of a growing pain on this one. But if I can tell you the difference between having cell phones in class and not, I will tell you I will take it all the time not to have them. Students are engaged. I generally feel that whatever we bring in the school system needs to be additive. And yes, there are parts of the cell phone business that are additive. However, I find there are more negatives than there are positives. So in a way, it doesn't really make sense that we would keep going with that system. So I look forward to trying to implement this and obviously talking to as many people and get their input on it and young people in the room. If you're juniors or seniors, a lot of this is going to come after you as well. And we love to hear your voice and get involved in these sort of things too. So I'm now in charge of introducing the next person. So I'm done. And so let me, So it's my turn now to introduce Mayor Deb Finan.
I'm the shortest one here. Hello, and thank you again to the governor for the opportunity to talk about this legislation. As the mom of a high school senior, I am well aware of the distraction that comes with cell phones. And frankly, as a user of the technology, I can say we're probably all aware of our own distraction when we're using them or have them available to us. This legislation addresses the problem head on, and it was raised by teachers. And the aim is to keep our kids focused in the classroom, which should help to improve learning outcomes. My favorite part, however, of the legislation is that rather than doing this the big government way and dictating to our local elected officials what to do and how to do it, this legislation instead recognizes that we locally know best how to implement a cell phone classroom ban in our district. And I want to thank all of the school board members who are here personally as well. This allows our local school board, in conjunction with input from our community and our staff, to implement the ban in a way that works best for our kids. And it also allows for updates and a change in policy without having to go back through a legislative process in Springfield. The legislation sets the standard, and then local school boards set the policy, which is exactly how it should be. And as we stand here in my alma mater, Centennial High School, where such a policy is already being implemented, I know that our local school board members and administration are taking in the input of what is working and what is not, and they will tweak the policy as necessary to make sure that it's the best that it can be. So thank you again to the governor for listening to our teachers and for securing a better learning environment for all of our students. And I get the pleasure of you can clap. Thank you. I get the pleasure of reintroducing Governor Pritzker to take some questions.
Thanks. Thank you. Happy to take any questions from members of the media.
Hey, Governor.
I don't think the Chicago Tribune should go first in Champaign. Do you? I'll ask you second. How about that? Go ahead. Just this young lady here.
Yes, there are a few different pieces of legislation floating around with proposed bans. Is there one that you think might be the most effective?
We're working with all, there are several, we know the baseline, and I talked about it in my remarks, that we want to make sure that classroom time is for learning and that teachers are able to connect with their students during that classroom time. So the precise method is less important to me than making sure that we have that baseline. But as the mayor said, and I think this is important, this is about local control. We're setting simply a minimum standard, and that's, we want students to be able to pay attention in class to their teacher, to learn in class, to work together with other students, and not be on their phones while they're trying to learn. So we'll work out the details of it during the legislative process, but I think that both of the pieces of legislation, one in the Senate, one in the House, essentially set that standard that I talked about. Yes, sir.
Sorry, I didn't see reporters.
That's okay, Jeremy.
So you had a proposal, a couple things about this. You had a proposal during your budget address, about your budget proposal about refurbishing some of these abandoned state facilities.
Yes.
And converting them into private economic development. You had 5 locations: Lincoln, Rockford, Dwight, Kankakee, and then
there's a longer list. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, you've repeatedly indicated that this next fiscal year it's going to be a tight budget.
Yes.
So, where did the state find $300 million for a program like this, and why is it prioritized all of a sudden with the tight budget year? Yeah.
So you have to remember that we have 2 different kinds of budgets. We have an operating budget for the state, and we have a capital budget for the state. They are very different. I know that the press pays most attention to the operating budget. Are we balancing the budget every year? Do we have a surplus or a deficit, et cetera? Which is an appropriate thing to pay attention to. We also have a capital budget. Every year we spend money on fixing roads and building buildings and things like that, right? You've seen the Capitol in Springfield is being renovated. That's part of the capital budget every year, not the operating budget. So that's the dollars for capital budget. As you know, I helped to pass a capital plan back in 2019 that helps to provide the funds every year for us to support that, and includes things like, for buildings, it includes things like the tax on video gaming in the state. So that's what the difference is, and that's where those dollars come from. I have to point out, though, that the expenditure that you're talking about, the capital expenditure you're talking about, is really an investment. So, it is 100%. And we obviously have a quantum campus, for example, that we're making a capital investment in. So, yeah, those numbers sound huge, and they are, but they're really designed to be investments, right? The operating budget of the state, you could say they're investments in the people of Illinois. The capital budget is about investing in the assets of Illinois. And we're often, like the program you're talking about, trying to create value for the state, for the people of Illinois if to the extent we're doing renovations or tear downs of old facilities. We have a lot of facilities. What Jeremy's talking about is facilities around the state that have been shut down over the years and then abandoned by the state, and they just sit there. They're kind of rotting. They cost us money because we have to make sure they're not a hazard, for example, or we need to make sure the plumbing is still working even though nobody's in the building. And there's no reason for the state to continue to own that facility. Let's see if there's a private owner that would take that over, that we could sell the facility to. So maybe it takes a little bit of money. Sometimes nobody wants to buy an old prison, for example, to use for something. And so sometimes you have to tear down what's on the property to make it of any value to a future owner. And so we're looking at all that. There's another, I want to just tell you one more thing about it, which is, for example, in Jacksonville, Illinois, there is a developmental center that's been closed. It's kind of in the middle of town. And so it just sits there almost like a blighted piece of property while Jacksonville is flourishing. And yet the state hasn't done anything to do any, to help turn that into something useful. And so that's a big boom for Jacksonville if we can help them turn that into something useful for the city of Jacksonville.
Just a quick follow-up on there about the former Lincoln Developmental Center.
Yes.
I just have to ask this. Your administration has talked about the probable proposal to relocate the Logan Correctional Center up north to the Joliet area.
Sure.
Something that the residents of Lincoln in the Lincoln area are very concerned about. Mm-hmm. So by including the former Lincoln Developmental Center site in your facilities plan for this private investment potentially, is this an example? Is this a way for you to appease people who are living in the Lincoln area because of the possible exodus of the Logan Correctional Center?
How about it's an opportunity? You say appeasing. No, I mean we look at all these facilities. I mean, we need to do something with facilities that aren't being used. There's no reason for us to continue to operate that. And importantly, for Lincoln, right? We want economic development, and I should add that thank goodness, because we've developed an economic development operation for the state, which we never had before, at least not when I came into office. There didn't exist anything trying to promote business and jobs in the state. We now have one, and we have a line of companies that come to us and say, we're looking for a site. We'd like a site of this size that could handle, that needs this much in utilities, right? This much power, this much water, et cetera. Do you have any sites that look like that? They come to the state and ask us. That site will be one of those, right? And by the way, it's still in use today, so it's not like the state is closing that site down today. We've talked about over 3 to 5 years this would take. And so over that time period, we'll be looking at what companies might be looking for a site, a factory, a headquarters, an assembly plant, et cetera, for that location, or whatever works best. I should add one other thing about that, which is you could have housing development on any of these sites, and we all know we need housing in the state of Illinois. And so some of these locations will be perfect for housing developments. But again, if we don't put a little bit of money into fixing them up or tearing down what's on the property, we won't ever get to have those results. Yes, hi.
Do you have an idea of how many federal workers have been laid off in Illinois and what the impact is on the state?
We don't know the exact number. I can tell you that we've seen an uptick. We do track people who are filing for unemployment in the state. We do know there's an uptick in the number of federal government employees who are filing for unemployment. And so that we do know. And we know there are about 80,000, I think, federal employees in the state of Illinois. I think I have that number right, but I'll ask my communications guys to fix it if I have gotten it a little wrong. But I think there are 80,000 in the state. That doesn't mean 80,000 have been laid off. But it's a large employer, the federal government in the state, and it will be painful, as it is for many other states, if there are major layoffs, and there are. Yes?
Returning back to the cell phone ban, I noticed you've got kind of exceptions listed up there. Curious how you came to those exceptions, and also how enforcing that has worked here in Champaign schools around those exceptions, with certain students being allowed to have phones, certain students not, et cetera.
So we're not the first state to do this, to consider doing this. There are other states that have already implemented it. And so we've looked, I'm a believer that reinventing a wheel is not a great idea. If you can look to a model somewhere else that's working. And so we looked at all of the models, all the other states that have done something like this, or cities or school districts. And the legislation is written to try to take into account what we think are the challenges with just saying cell phone ban. Because we're really aiming at classroom time, right? It's not from my perspective, and it'll be up to each school district, but from my perspective, it's not about, the walking through the hall time, or your time outside, enjoying the sun, or whatever. It's about paying attention in classes. But again, those will be decisions, and that's a little bit, as you see, we need to make exceptions during classroom time for people who have particular needs. Sometimes they're medical needs. And so that will be a consideration. There are people who actually use a cell phone to monitor a condition that they've got. And so that's obviously, we're not taking cell phones away from them. But those are the things that have, allowed us to have exceptions in the law.
We'll take one more.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Did you have any personal connection to this that made it a priority for you, or was it more talking to teachers and administrators?
It's a great question. I think anybody who's a parent of a kid who's gone through high school or even younger knows that you've gone through this challenge, right? When do you give your child a cell phone? How much are you hoping they use it or don't use it, and for what? And I have two children. They're 20 and 22 now, so not long ago they were in high school and junior high school. So I've experienced the problem, challenge, in particular cyberbullying, and so I think my kids were paying attention in class, but I couldn't tell you 100%. And I know that they're distracted because we can all see it. I think we all are, by social media and everything that's available on your phone, right? And it's easy when you're sitting in class, if there's one person speaking in the front of the room and you're maybe not fully attentive to what they're saying, it's easier to start paying attention to the 10,000 things that are on your phone. And whatever it is that's most attractive there. So yeah, I have a personal experience with it. It's nothing that, was traumatic enough that made me all of a sudden decide this is important. I have had a belief that we needed to do something like this, and we've seen some examples around the country of it working, which I think is an important proof point for me that maybe we should do it here. And then in talking to educators and to parents and to students, I know students sometimes are resistant to this, but an awful lot of students understand the need for it, even if they're a little bit resistant to, to the idea of like, I can't use my cell phone whenever I want.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah. Thank you.